my channel. Hi everybody, how are you doing? I hope you're all doing fine and you're coping well with our winter. And I'm just going to try to continue with another one of my series discussing something from Endless Journeys. And so I'm going to be playing around with time a little more today because I filmed this way back in the summertime, if you can believe it. And actually, this was the last focus on the survivors of the Titanic ship that sank way back decades and decades ago. And so we're going to be discussing a very kind of weird couple. In my opinion, they were a little weird, but they were honeymooners, Victor and Pepita. And they were very, how do I say this? They were very well off, very, very high class and well spoken, well mannered, but they were not in a third class cabin by any means. But what I want you to do is to focus on their period. There's not that much known about it, but the period before they actually boarded the Titanic ship that sank. And what happened was they had a very extended honeymoon, maybe about a couple of years long. That's why I think it's a little weird. And they were particularly interested in collecting very valuable items of jewelry, such as precious stones and gold. And so, no, I guess there's not that much suspicious about that. But I'm going to tell you the story, and you can decide for yourselves what exactly was up. And so this series actually focuses on the survivors of the Titanic ship that sank. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to be dedicating any part of this series to those passengers who did not survive. I'm going to have to see, because I haven't really researched them at all yet. But this would probably be the final couple that I did manage to read up on, and I found them interesting and strange. So here we go. We're going to go a little bit back in time, and I'm going to take you back to the summer. I believe this was filmed around the end of July or August, and so I'm going to take you back there. And so I hope that you enjoy this discussion on Victor and Pepita, and I'll talk to you in just a little bit. my channel. Meantime, guys, I haven't shown you much of a light bulb haul. I'm still on that mission. And the reason for that is that I just haven't found all of the bulbs yet. I have found some, but not all of them. And so I am still on a light bulb mission. So I'm probably going to be doing a little window shopping. And so that's what I need to get done for today. Other than that, there's nothing really going on. Nothing else on the agenda for today. And so it's a nice, beautiful autumn day, or I would say it's almost autumn. Not all of the trees have been turning yet, but it's still beautiful out here. And so I want to take the time to stroll around and enjoy that just a little bit, if you know what I mean. Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another segment of Endless Journeys. And so this case that I have coming up for you today, it really gets me here. It's about as tear-jerking and heart-wrenching as the Titan orphan story. And Lady Noelle Rothis also plays a big part in this story, because one of the survivors who managed to come out of this horrible mishap and disaster alive, was actually in the same lifeboat that Countess Rothis was rowing. So she got familiar with the victim, and so we're going to hear about that a little later on, maybe on the road, maybe at home, maybe a little of both. I don't know. Okay, so maybe a floor lamp? here we are. I'm ready to discuss the details of the sinking of the Titanic in the perspective of the story that surrounded Victor and Maria Pensaco. Now, Maria Josefa Perez de Soto and Victor Pensaco y Castellano were a newlywed married couple. And so for all intents and purposes of this video, throughout, I will be simply referring to either one of them or both of them as Pepita and Victor, because I will not be able to get all those names in correctly. So you know how I am with names. Anyway, all right. So now Pepita was a survivor, and we're gonna get right back into the story. It actually begins in 1910, and so this Titanic survivor was born on September the 3rd, 1889. And so she was 22 years old, it says here, and 7 months when she was recorded as being a survivor. And so her nationality was Spanish, and she was a newlywed. She was married to Victor Peñasco y Castellano, and their last known residence together was Madrid, Spain. And now, so this story is very heart-wrenching for me, guys. And it also has this little hint or suggestion of evil or superstition. Not to say that they were at all evil, but I want you to remember what I said a while ago about the black matter that surrounds a lot of these passengers' lives. Just keep that in the back of your head. And when I say black matter, again, I'm not suggesting anything of a satanic or evil nature. I mean this in purely scientific terms, black, where no light can shine from or reflect off of. Just like we found in the underwater depths where the Titanic submarine imploded, remember? And so the story should actually begin with the understanding that both of these people, both Victor and Pepita, were enormously wealthy and of a very high social status, which is very much more pronounced coming from that part of the world of Europe, I should say. In Spain, the divide or division between economic and social classes is very, very, very out there. It's very dominant. And so we have to also take that into consideration when we're thinking about this story and this perspective and the outcome, the consequential conclusion of this story in particular, because it goes a way that I don't particularly like it to have gone, and I'll explain why later on. And again, I'm not judging. This is not to say that they were bad people at all. Just saying that in their walk of life, in that part of society, in that kind of a social structure, that is how things actually went down. And that is actually what I am kind of frowning upon. So I'm going to get to that around the end of the video. So bear with me. Now, they embarked on the maiden voyage of the Titanic ship in Cherbourg, UK. and that would have been the 10th of April, 1912. And they boarded, guys, on the as first-class passengers, honeymooners. They were still on the second year of their honeymoon, true, but they were actually, you know, they were planning to end their honeymoon very soon, but they thought that they would just take one final uh, jump into New York City and party a little more before they headed back to Spain. And so this is where they were headed when they embarked in Cherbourg. And so, it does say here that Pepita was rescued on Lifeboat 8 on uh, on Thursday, April the 18th. So that is how long it took. And she disembarked from the RMS Carpathia. So she was rescued, guys. And now where was Victor? We're going to get to that. And so consequentially, incidentally, and of some importance to the story, she did live a long life and passed away on April the 3rd, another 3rd, of 1972 at 82 years old. So I don't know how happy her life was, but we're going to get to the rest of her life in a little while. But she did manage to, get out of this tragedy as unscathed as possible. Now, of course, she's not in front of us. I don't believe that she gave too many interviews at all. I have not done any research, admittedly, from Madrid. So it could be that she was a very well-known personality and gave many interviews. Of that, I don't know. She may not have wanted to. So I'm not going to say anything here furthermore, but we're going to get further into the details of this story very soon. And so what happened was, guys, hold on. Records indicate that there were conflicting reports as to basically Victor himself, Victor's age, Victor's, the thing is that it gets to the point of what I will be making in a while regarding the way that this story ultimately went, because of who Victor and Pepita actually were. Pepita was able to get things done with Victor's family, with the Penasco family. And so what happened was, it lists Victor as a 17-year-old instead of a actual 24-year-old. He was actually 24. And Pepita was 22. So we're hearing different reports, like maybe their marriage records, death records, and whatever have you. The travel records, the travel documents. So there are conflicting ages and whatever have you. And so Victor boarded the Titanic with his wife Pepita and her maid, who were both rescued in Lifeboat 8, and her maid was Doña Fermina Oliva y Ocana. And so she was 39 years old, guys, and she survived with Pepita. And so they all together, their party did occupy cabin C65. And so Victor was born on October the 24th, 1887. And so that was his real birthday. And when you hear the rest of the story toward the end of my dialogue, you're going to understand why there were kind of conflicting records as to his age. And so bear with me. It gets a little sticky and confusing, but in the end, it all pans out. We do know that he absolutely did transpire. And so it was very sad, and it actually was quite a tragedy, even in the eyes of the other passengers who lived to tell what they witnessed. It was so heart-wrenching, guys. Now, okay, so this story actually does begin, the story of Victor and Pepita, it begins on December the 8th, 1910, when Victor was 24 and very newlywed to Pepita. And so they did marry on December the 8th. And so she was an heiress, 2 years his junior, which would have made her 22 years old. Now, again, I'm not sure if they were 22 and 24 at the time that they traveled or at the time of their marriage, but this is what I'm given, so bear with me. Anyway, now Victor boarded the RMS Titanic at Cherbourg with, of course, Pepita and their maid Fermina. And so what happened is that because Victor was a very kind and very outgoing, athletic, warm, generous person. And he was spectacularly wealthy, like Pepita. And he was also of noble status because his family was the minister to the King of Spain. And so, by any and every account, these two newlyweds were carefree. They were an attractive couple and so much in love. Can you imagine having not a care in the world with only your one and only true love to focus on? That would have been very idyllic, wouldn't it? And so it is with that spirit and that heart that we found them traveling throughout their journey on the RMS Titanic. Now, guys, even though they were a warm and generous and a fun-loving couple with not a care in the world, they did have a kind of a dark secret. Maybe not so dark to some people, but I would imagine that in their own perspective, it was something that they were covering up in order to comfort and console and soothe the, I don't know how you say this, and soothe the, actually, they were trying to console Victor's mother, Purificación, because she had originally forbidden her son to journey via ocean, via water, through ship, by ship, whatever have you, because she was very superstitious. And now this is what I'm talking about, dark energy, even though I only mean to imply it in scientific terms, it does have an impact on the research I'm doing now and on the studies that I'm trying to carry out regarding time travel. And so bear with me on that, because I just saw a movie last night based on time travel, and it is right in the heart of all of these horrific catastrophes and how do I say this? Disappearances. Now, I don't want to get into time travel, but this is what time travel actually does draw upon. So, what happens is that whenever there is an episode of time travel, it's always accidental, guys. That's what makes it so dangerous. And it's stuff like this that can attract and have a great impact on the magnetic forces that are truly and physically really actually at work in a time travel journey. And so what happened is that Victor had a butler who he left behind in Paris. Paris was their last destination before they arrived in Cherbourg to board the Titanic. And so what Victor and Pepita had been doing throughout their honeymoon, which included a tour throughout all of Europe, was that they were purchasing very beautiful and precious gemstones. Now, I don't know if they were in the business of doing that for something in particular, or whether it was simply because Pepita loved her jewelry to be very beautiful and fancy, probably a little of both. I'm not sure if there was anything more sinister going on besides a beautiful and deep love for precious jewelry. And so while they were in Paris, which was the last destination that they were in before arriving at Cherbourg, they extended their honeymoon a little further by planning that trip to New York City, where they could just party a little more. And so Victor's mother, however, did forbid him to travel via water, because it was supposed to be very, very, very negative and very superstitious, very bad for a honeymooning couple to journey through water. Now, I'm very curious. I'm not too superstitious, but you never know. When there's a lot of dark and negative activities surrounding such circumstances, I think I could be persuaded to become very superstitious indeed. And so I want to know, is anybody out there superstitious? Did you travel on your honeymoon? And was it on water? Of course you traveled on your honeymoon, but was it through water? Have you ever heard that superstition before? I want to know, because this is my first time hearing it. And so, guys, what did Victor do? Okay, Victor had his butler, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that name because I know I'm not going to be able to say it properly, but he had the butler who traveled with them, journeyed with the couple, with Fermina, throughout all of Europe and the rest of the world. And so he stayed behind in Paris, but Fermina traveled on with them. And why did he stay behind in Paris? Well, Victor entrusted him with a collection of, no, not the jewels, but pre-written and pre-dated postcards. And guess what was going to happen with all of those predated postcards, guys? It's kind of sad and eerie and ironic. Well, he was going to be delivering them, having them delivered to his mother, Purificación, by the butler to fool her into thinking that they were still city hopping and not at all journeying through the water, which indeed they had been. And so, guys, that's the deep and dark secret surrounding this couple, Pepita and Victor, who really intended to party in New York. Now, maybe they were going to do something with the jewels. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they were starting up a business. I have no idea. It's just like, the gun that the orphan's dad was carrying. We don't know what he was going to do with that gun. Was he going to do something to himself or his sons with that gun? Or was it for protection? We don't know. We lack those details. And so that's why this story, this part of the story, this particular Titanic story, does have some kind of a mysterious cloud hanging over it. We don't know exactly what was in that couple's mind. I don't think that they were criminals. But because we don't know the truth, it leaves us wide open to many, many different possibilities, right? And so what they did was they planned to go to New York and then return back to Madrid secretly. And so secrecy really is key to this whole story, and also to the stories of many other of the Titanic passengers, right? As you know, there would have been no other way for Victor and Pepita to travel had it not been for the voyages that they journeyed through by ship. Now, I don't know how they got from Madrid to Paris, because if you recall, there were no planes in 1912, certainly not for commercial use, at least. And so planes were only, they only had a military benefit, a military use, especially back then. Remember Amelia Earhart. So this really, it gives the story kind of a bit of a sinister turn. And so, okay, let's talk a little bit about the maiden voyage. The Penascos boarded, the newlywed Penascos boarded the Titanic with Pepita's maid Fermina on the evening of April 10th, 1912. And so their party did occupy the first class stateroom C65. And they were also not the only Spanish passengers aboard, but they were the only ones in first class. And so while the Penascos were from Madrid, the other Spanish-speaking passengers were from Argentina and Mexico. And I'm pretty sure that they were probably occupying the second and third class passenger cabins. And so, as you know, the third class passengers never made it out. And that would be because they were the last ones to go, and because there were power failures that affected the lifeboats launching. Also that there weren't enough, right? There weren't enough lifeboats to go around. So third class passengers never made it out. And so that night that the Titanic struck an iceberg, it was that they had been to dinner, and so they were returning late from dinner, and the maid Fermina was in the room. She probably had her dinner in the room, and she was waiting up for them. And so what happened was that Fermina she waited for Pepita to take off her corset, and she needed to mend it a little. And so maybe with all that dancing and all that dessert and wine, it had come a little loose at the seams. And so that is what Pepita and Fermina were actually doing. And so they were all kind of getting ready for bed. And so Fermina had been, helping them fetch their things and get ready for bed and work on the corset. And what happened was, I don't know about Victor, but Fermina noticed a very light, like a click or a tap. And so that account of the crash really is very non-dramatic and very almost, uneventful. And so what happened was that Fermina immediately notified Victor, and he he actually got dressed and went up aboard, and he wanted to check things out because Fermina was very alarmed, even though it was a very kind of minor tap. Something must have happened. Something, maybe the lights flickered. Something must have happened, guys, because from their position in the boat, in the ship, they probably were far from it. You know what I'm saying? And so they would have felt it much less than other passengers on the other end of the boat. And so what happened is that Victor went up on board, and what the maid said was that it was so faint that not even the glasses dropped or shattered. Nothing was disturbed at all. So I would imagine that the impact hit that part of the ship much less. And that would be why the perspective is much less dramatic. You know what I'm saying? Than some of the other passengers had been sharing. And so he went up and he found out what happened, that the ship struck an iceberg, and then he he rushed back to his room, and he got them ready to go. He got them dressed again, and he escorted them back to the deck. And what I don't understand, guys, is he ushered Pepita and the maid Fermina on Lifeboat 8, and there was a big struggle. Pepita wouldn't go. I imagine when I was on my honeymoon, if I had been separated from my ex, I wouldn't have gone. I had to become separate from him at immigrations when he landed in my country. And I was frantic. And so it took 4 or 5 hours. I was frantic. And so I understand it wasn't an immediate honeymoon. They were still on an extended honeymoon. But still, when you're in love, you don't want to be separated from your loved one, from your better half, your other half, in a crisis especially. What happened was he took them into the care of a second officer, Charles Lightoller, who prepared to lower the Lifeboat 8 into the water. And what he did, guys, was that Victor went back to the cabin for the jewels. Now, I don't know if that affected his ability to get on that lifeboat, or if they really did not intend to take him on as well. We'll never know. But what I don't understand is why some men were able to be rescued while others were not. I don't know. And so I'm going to leave you guys with that. And I'm going to be getting back to the story. And we'll just say that rumor has it that Victor dashed back below for his wife's jewels. And even when he got back, Pepita still wouldn't board the boat. And he implored her. And she was in tears and refused. And all the while, guys, most of the passengers were English speaking on that side of the ship. And so they didn't understand. Of course, they could comprehend and imagine what was being said, but they couldn't understand word for word what was going on. And so, guys, I'm going to let you go for now. I'm going to see you back at home because I'm not sure that I'm going to be making any more stops along the way. But I think I'm just going to try to get home before it gets very dark. And I'll talk to you later.